Good morning. This hour is very important for me because this is the first time since I was almost asking you to do this because some of us are physically challenged. So, this is the first time since I arrived in May that I've been able to speak to a group of people. I think since I came, I've only been tied to the office, looking at the website and Facebook. My background actually is that I'm a journalist. I used to work for the Voice of America. Spent quite a bit of time, in different countries in Africa. So I'm accustomed to moving from point A to point B. So the 3 months that I've been sitting in the office, sometimes, my boss wonders as to why I pace up and about the corridor, every, 10 minutes or so, because I'm getting used to the idea of sitting in the office for a long time. So I have a very good excuse today to, come out and, and speak and interact. So thank you so much, ICD, for the opportunity. I decided to speak from my heart instead of, doing a PowerPoint because I'll tell you this, I speak more genuinely when I'm speaking the way in which I'm speaking. You're likely to get the most out of me that way than giving a formal lecture. So let me just say this. Thanks for the introduction about Zambia, the background that you've given. That then would just enable me to launch straight into what I'd like to share with you. This is a combination of Zambia, Zambian culture and tourism. And let me just tell you a few things about what we see as Zambia's culture and how this interfaces with, with tourism. We are a country of about 73 different tribes and ethnic groups. I know in Europe you don't call them tribes, I think you call them ethnic groups or groupings. We are about 73, and we are spread across a landscape of about 753,000 square kilometers. And we are a country administratively that is divided into 10 provincial centers. And for some reason, when our leaders just after independence in 1964 were dividing the country into provincial centers or provincial administrative structures, they, I think, inadvertently placed, ethnic groups in these administrative boundaries. So that if you talk about, say, the northern province of Zambia, you're talking about people that speak predominantly a language called Bemba, which happens also to be my language. In my language, if I'm going to say good morning to you, I'll be saying Mwashibukeni. Can someone repeat that? Moi, no, moi. Can you say moi? She, who, who. You say the B-U, we don't say boo, we say woo. Okay? Ke, ni. Mwashibukeni. Then you are saying good morning, okay, in Bemba. So when you meet a Zambian and say Mwashibukeni, they know you're speaking Bemba, you are saying to them, good morning. Now, one challenge that our leaders had just after independence was you have 73 tribes, and these speak more than 16 main languages. So how do you ensure that everyone feels that they are Zambian? So that's one of the areas challenges that they had to deal with. So, we had to find an easy way out. And just said, since we are colonized by the British, English will be the official language. Of course, the challenge along the way is that there are many other people that can't speak English very well. And they've been left out in a lot of things. And we haven't resolved that problem. But in terms of, radio and television, we decided that we are going to adopt several languages, and we adopted about 7 languages that we thought were major languages. I don't even know what criteria was used to define these as major, but that also has created its own problems. But now that we have more than 100 radio stations all over the country, community radio stations, it has helped to some extent because now those radio stations are broadcasting in those, languages. So other than the issue of language, these 73 tribes also have distinct ceremonies. In fact, we have tribal ceremonies, about 96 of them. And what the country decided recently was to say that in order for us to promote an identity of who we are, let's allow each and every one of these ceremonies and give them national status. So that you have calendars on which you do this, and the calendar is circulated in government offices, non-government organizations that are promoting activities of various tribes and ethnic groups share these, and when that date falls, what happens is that large parts of Lusaka remain empty because people head into that direction, and it's a lot of fun. In the part of Zambia I come from, where we share a border with the Democratic Republic of Congo, we have a ceremony called Umutomboko. Can someone say that? Umutomboko. Aha. Umutomboko simply means jumping. It refers to a time when a tribal grouping known as Lundas moved from what is known as the Democratic Republic of Congo today, and they had to jump a river called Luapula to come into what is known as Zambia today. So when they jumped there, they decided to come up with a ceremony and marked that area and called that ceremony Umutomboko, because it refers to a time when we had to jump that river and came into this part of Zambia today. And that ceremony, which happens about July every year, it draws a lot of, it attracts a lot of guests from all over the country. And now, so many of them outside the country. I don't know exactly how this started. I think it didn't start officially. I think what simply started was a situation where, I have a friend who comes from Ghana or a friend who comes from Nigeria or South Africa and say, come along with me, there's something happening in my province. And soon, it grew into a place where the government recognized some of these cultural events as tourism products. So what has happened now is that with the establishment of Zambia Tourism Agency, they've now incorporated all these traditional ceremonies in a package that is now sold as Zambia's tourism, products and services. So it is hardly surprising today that at any one of these ceremonies, you're going to find a lot of foreigners. Now we also have a lot of white people, because it's easy to identify a white person as a foreigner. For blacks, it's different because I have to ask. Only when I hear your accent am I able to tell. Because even if in Africa we speak a lot of English, it's possible to tell that this one is from West Africa. They are able to tell that I'm Zambian, because there are certain words in English that are only pronounced the Zambian way. And there are certain words in English that are only pronounced the South African way. It doesn't matter how much you hide, I'll be able to smoke you out that you're South African. It doesn't matter how much you hide, I'll be able to tell that you are from Kenya or you're from Uganda. For instance, our Ugandan friends, what we normally tease them back home, they also tease us back, is that we say, sometimes we want to brag as Zambians that we speak much better English. And we would use certain words. For instance, the Ugandans would say, and I'm saying this because you have a Ugandan in your midst, Ugandans would say, instead of saying first, Ugandans would say fast. They would say fast person. In Zambia, we say first person. Isn't that correct? So we Zambians will brag that we speak much better English. And then they'll also say back to us that, no, you Zambians don't, but at the end of the day, we use English as a way, it's a compromised language. So we are able to tell who is a foreigner and who is not. So we are now seeing an increasing number of foreigners that are now identifying themselves with some of these cultural ceremonies. But there are also other, cultural activities in Zambia that also attract a lot of foreigners. When you are marrying off someone, there's a ceremony we call Amateveto. Can someone say that? Amateveto. This is where the bridegroom's family would prepare all kinds of meals and then invite him with his family to come and taste that. So the food will be delivered to a designated house. Maybe the groom will say, will you take this to my uncle? And then we invite his friends and many other people. But now what we are seeing is that there are so many other foreigners that are also coming. And there's something that happens where the groom's feet are washed by a designated big woman who does that, washes his feet and his hands and a towel, then is invited to taste all the foods that will have been brought. They are then saying, now you can begin to eat in our home, and that this is what we eat. So if you're going to find any of these things in our home, please, you're welcome to eat, because this is what we eat. It's one way of welcoming someone. Now, this has become so big that so many people that are now coming to watch this, and it's modified. So I can go on and speak about this, but the point I want to make is that what has now happened is that we have taken stock of our cultural practices, and we've said to ourselves, how do we interest other people, to come and partner with us or join, and enjoy with us, and also get to know us, because each and every one of these ceremonies say something about who we are, certain aspects of our lives. In terms of the traditional tourist, attractions that that we sell out there, I think most of you are familiar with the iconic Victoria Falls, because that's what we sell so much. But we've also noticed there's kind of a rivalry in terms of who owns the Victoria Falls, because Zimbabwe also sell Victoria Falls, South Africa will sell as part of the package, and we don't have a problem with that, because finally, tourists will still come. But I want to tell you that the Victoria Falls is 1.7 kilometers in stretch. 1.2 kilometers of that is in Zambia. So who owns the Victoria Falls? Look, it doesn't matter. But 1.2 of this is in Zambia. And during the rain season, about October, between October and March, that's when it is extremely beautiful, because during the rain season, that's when you see, how water cascades down that 100 meter plus, drop. And a lot of tourists love that, because you have these water vapors, and just the idea that you're going to be wet, all your hair could be wet. It's a time when women don't really want to cover their hair and all that. You just leave it that way. And now it has also given an opportunity to young men to cash in on the opportunity, because what they do is that they bring raincoats. So when you're there and you don't want to be wet, these boys that will rent a raincoat for to you for maybe about 50 cents or $1, and it's very, very huge business. But look, Victoria Falls is not the only falls that we have. Zambia has numerous waterfalls that are scattered all over the country. I think what we have not done sufficiently is to be able to open up other parts of the country. That is why in 2011, the country decided to revise its tourism policy. And this is found on, if you go on www.zambiatourism.com, you can download this tourism policy. Now, what the tourism policy indicated was the fact that Zambia, to a large extent, is virgin territory as far as tourism activities are concerned. We've concentrated for far too long in Livingstone, which is the tourism capital where the Victoria Falls is. And a lot of very good infrastructures come up in terms of the hospitality industry, the hotels and lodges and all that. But this has been done at the expense of, say, the northern region of Zambia that equally has a lot of tourist activities. You know that we have one of the largest lakes called Lake Tanganyika that we share with Tanzania, Burundi, and the DRC. It has the freshest waters, and in the world, and probably the deepest lake in the world. We've got one passenger ship that has been plowing these waters since 1936, and it brings a lot of people that say all kinds of things from East Africa, and we haven't done the most in terms of developing that area. Now, with the introduction of the tourism policy in 2011, which was revised in 2015, we've become a little more aggressive. What has happened subsequently is that we have now begun to build roads into different parts of the country under what is known as Link Zambia 8000. We want to make sure that by 2020, thereabout, each and every part of Zambia's 100 districts are now connected with roads that have been raised to bituminous standard. And that each and every one of these districts must have tour operators and must have lodges of an international standard. And the private sector has begun to respond, slowly but surely. So we're now beginning to see, for instance, at some point we had less than 2,000 or so Germans visiting Zambia. By last year, we recorded some modest increase of up to about 7,000. That's not still good enough. Now we've gone a step further. We are able to convince ITB, Berlin here, that Messe Berlin, that look, we can be culture partners for at least 2018, so that we have a larger platform at the global level to showcase Zambia's tourism potential. And they agreed, and we signed a memorandum of understanding. And last month, we signed a contract to be able to seal the deal. So now, we are in the process of packaging Zambia's culture and tourism products and services, so that come March 2018, we are going to paint Berlin red. We want to paint Berlin red with all kinds of cultural and tourism products and services. And I would like to come and see all these faces during that time. And so that you are able to tell me whether, this day I was just bragging or not. And I've already mentioned this to the ICD administration here, and I didn't shy away from the fact that, look, if there's any technical assistance that we can tap into, we'll be more than happy. We're not shy to admit that there are certain things that we need help with. And we were courteous enough to be able to say, look, we are only pushing an open door. Please come. And today, my coming was my first official engagement with them, and as a way of saying, look, we are heading towards March 2018. Would like to work with you all the way. I can say a lot of things about Zambia's tourism, but let me just say in my final remarks that I know when people come to Zambia, they would like to see waterfalls, they see animals, and so on. But I would also want you to deepen your understanding of who we are as Zambians. So next time you visit Zambia, I think do a kind of tourism that takes you to our residential areas. That takes you to our markets, to our schools. We are not shy to show you every part of Zambia. We are a developing country. Some areas are really poor, and I would like you to see them. And some of them are very affluent, and we also have shopping malls, but we also have shabby markets, We have airports, that, in fact, there's one that we're building now, which is going to rival any airport, here on the continent, in Europe. Our example is what we see for, brothers in South Africa, with some of the most beautiful airports, and we're heading into that direction. But please, when you come, I want you to, interact with Zambians so that you get to know them. Try to speak a few of, their words and, languages. Eat with them. You may not recognize the food, but, food is food. Food is food. Just eat. And if you decide to fall in love and marry a Zambian, so be it. I might just try to do that myself. So thank you very much for your attention.
So now we'll have some questions for our guest. So please, who wants to go first?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for this wonderful presentation about Zambia. Actually, I have a question about, as we are talking tourism and culture, do you think that even these poor families are part of the interests of the tourism? Because I think that people, when they come to a country, they don't fancy more the modern areas, but they need to see the real culture. I mean the source of the Zambian culture. And do you think that preserving the poor areas and to let them less developed, if I can say, are part of the tourism interest for people coming from abroad? Doesn't matter if from Africa or from Europe or America. Yeah, so thank you. If you...
Yeah. There's a residential area in Zambia called Kawata. It's a high-density area, because for those high-density areas are those where you have a larger population of people from middle class to those that you classify as poor. Now, in there, we've preserved a place called Kawata Cultural Village. Now, in there, particularly during weekends, there are cultural activities that happen there, and these are done by people that live there. The ones that you refer to, or that we refer to as the poor. So the Zambian government has recognized that if tourists have to see our cultural tourism products, let them see them in the areas where the custodians of this culture reside. So if you go to Zambia and ask for a place called Kabwata Cultural Center, that's where you're going to come into contact with this section of the Zambian people. But also what happens is that in other poor residential areas, you have on Saturday afternoons and Sunday afternoons, people doing all kinds of cultural activities. And slowly we're beginning to see that those that you identify as well-to-do are going into those areas. And you know this how? You see them by the cars that are parked close to ramshackles, Sometimes you see a V8 or a Mercedes-Benz, parked to ramshackle, and it's because there's a cultural activity going on, and there's a group of Germans that just left 2 days ago to undertake what they are calling participatory tourism. And the idea is that they want to go and visit residential areas. They want to, visit a family, just an ordinary family, even accompany the child to school because they want to see, what school the child goes to. Even spend a bit of time with the child at school. They are also going to visit an area called Mazabuka in the southern region of Zambia, where there's a sugar plantation. What they want to do is to visit an ordinary worker who chops sugar canes. They want to see how he lives or how they live, Have a chat with them and walk with them to a place of work. Chop sugar canes, with them. And because you are allowed by the company to eat in the field, it's not stealing. If you're passing through and just, what is stealing is if you take some canes and walk away. So they are going to do this. So we are slowly recognizing the fact that, the poor among us have something to contribute to tourism, but let this happen within the areas of their residence. Once in a while, these are transferred to, plush places like, hotels where maybe you have visiting leaders like presidents that you may not want to go for whatever reasons. So you come and perform in the hotel.
Good morning, Ambassador Kaunda. How do you see the role of China in Africa economic and psycho-dynamic of life development and its relation in terms of cultural dynamic going on in Africa right now? Because I'm from Nigeria, everywhere is Chinese. And to me, that is really affecting in terms of our growth and development as a nation states. I just want to ask you, is that not a problem, or is it a problem to our colonization again of who we are and what we are as African people?
I'm beginning to sense that narrative across the African continent. But I'll tell you this. First, I don't think that the Chinese will come into your country against your will. They'll come into your country because you've agreed that they should come. I think what this narrative ought to do is to say, can we negotiate this relationship in such a way that our interests are equally, taken into account? I was just chatting with my colleague from Uganda there, who's a student here. I was saying, there was a narrative at some point in Africa which was very dominant. Oh, Europe is doing this to us. Europe is doing this to us. Europe is doing this to us. Come on, wake up. You're an adult. You telling me that a European is more adult than you? No, what we haven't just done for far too long is to negotiate the relationship. If you are coming to invest in my country, it's because I've invited you to. There's no country today, it doesn't matter how powerful it may be, whether it is America, whether it's Russia, or whether it is China, that will come into your country against your will. One of the things I think we need to do in Africa is to invest in international relations skills so that our negotiating skills are such that we are able to retain what we want, so that it becomes a win-win situation. That's what we learn in diplomacy. But we've allowed a political narrative to run away. Now, the political narrative is very simple. And when you allow politicians only to debate, the narratives are very simplistic. All the other one is to transfer responsibility to somebody else. No, actually, it's China responsible for this. Oh, no, it's the Germans. After all, their technology is far more superior than... No. It's not them to blame. What simply has to happen in Africa is let's invest in relevant skills. And one of the skills that we need to invest in is negotiation.